All right, here we go. Week 3. I am back from New York City. Daughter graduated, Masters of Fine Arts, did her art show and had a lot of fun, and boy, am I tired. I think the most we walked one day was 15 miles in one day, which is way more than my 3,000 miles a day, or 3,000 steps a day. So we had a great time and glad to be back, and looking forward to this week with you guys. I looked over your budget assignments and have given you a grade and given you some feedback on them. One of the things that I saw, some of you were very, very clear about your funding source and how you were going to spend the money. And some of you kind of lumped it all together and said, this is how much money I have all together, and this is how we're going to spend it. No, I need to know by category or by funding source how money is being spent, because the state tracks it. They might say, hey, you paid for a PE teacher out of Title I funds, and that's not appropriate. So you've got to show exactly how you're spending the money. So real clear on that, if I made that comment to you. A couple of you said, the money's up to the principal, or the spending's up to the discretion of the principal. No, no, it's not. Money is always tracked, and it has to be approved by the school site council, and it has to match your school's goals. If it doesn't match your goals, let's say you wanted to buy a PE teacher, but your goals are EL kids and school safety, the state's going to come back and say, this doesn't match your school plan. You can't do this. You can't spend this money this way. So that's why writing that school plan is so important. You always answer to somebody, and a couple of you work for private schools or charter schools. There's always somebody looking over the money. So maybe there's a board of trustees, or there's a deacon group that's looking over it. You can't just spend the money any way you want. There's always somebody tracking the money, or at least there should be, because if there's not, there's going to be fraud. Okay? What you're going to think about in this final project, so you've already done this of how you spend the money. Now in the final project, was that money spent well, and how do you know it was spent well? So for example, if I spent money from Title I for a bilingual aid for my EL kids, I've got to show that somehow my student, maybe my reclassification rate went up, or my students are performing better on benchmarks. Somehow tie that to student performance. If it's not tied to student performance, then they're going to say, well, that expenditure didn't work for you. You can't spend that money that way anymore. The trick with LCAP is that we have a lot more ability to spend it the way we think we want to spend it, but student or parent advocate groups are coming after that money. There's a lot of places, and my district included, where we have given raises to teachers and raises to administrators. And parent advocacy groups have come back and said, well, you're paying them more, but I don't see any more achievement for my kid. I didn't see your reclassification rates go up. I didn't see the graduation rates go up. I didn't see the attendance rates go up. So you're not spending that money correctly. Uh-oh. So you can't just pay people more with LCAP. You've got to show how it's improving the experience for children. And that's, I think, where we're going to get ourselves in trouble with LCAP, because a lot of us, for so long, we didn't have raises, and we were trying, we're trying to make up for a couple of very, very lean years. But it's got to be tied to student achievement, and teacher unions don't want to hear that. They just want to say, give me more money. They don't want to say, give me more money and I'll put more hours in the day, or give me more money and we'll provide after-school tutoring. A lot of times teachers union says, just, we're worth it, give us more money. But that's not really how LCAP is planned out. And we've got to be very careful and strategic with that money, tying it to student achievement. So that's the next part of this assignment. Taking that budget that's very, very clear on where you're spending the money, and then tying it, how are you going to measure that students have actually improved? It's improved the school experience for kids. Okay, so that's what you're thinking about in that final project. Your group project is due June 5th, and you need to start giving me a topic. So start thinking about it. There's some in your syllabus, or you can come up with your own, but you need to give me a topic, and June 5th you're going to send me that PowerPoint so I can get it loaded into Blackboard. I hope we're still using it. They keep talking about changing it now, and I hope we're going to keep it at least into Adobe for the rest of this course. On page 16 or 61 in your book for chapter 5, there is a budget adoption calendar, and this is something that school districts live and breathe by. There are certain deadlines for when you have to get your budget in, and it has to be approved. It has to be approved, the LCAP and then the budget, they have to be tied together, and those have to be done by a certain date. If they're not done by a certain date, you're in a lot of trouble. It goes to the county office. The county office reviews it and decides if you're certified, if you're going to be in trouble and you need some help. So those dates are something that the district office lives and breathes by. I know school sites don't even think about them, but there's something that have to be done, and then there's interim reports that have to be given to the state. So if you are attending board meetings, which I suggest you do, or at least look at the board meeting agenda, there's always going to be updates about the budget and cash flow. Those are important things that you need to be tied to. You're going to also be reviewing the FCMAT website, and the FCMAT, FCMAT.org, is one of the best sources for information on fiscal matters. I believe one of our links didn't work this week, and so I gave you information on AB 1200, which is kind of the calendar for getting your budget approved. But FCMAT has tons of resources and a lot of classes that you can take online for free. Doesn't cost to join. You can just make an account on FCMAT, and they'll let you have access to their resources. They have a dartboard, which is great, and they have a FCMAT or a LCFF calculator that can also help you do the budget. Invaluable for school districts. And probably as a teacher, you've never even looked at this site, but it's got a lot of great things on it. One of the things they talk about when creating a budget is that you have to have really good attendance accounting, which is why you have to sign those, when you take attendance and at the end of the month you have to sign that the kids were actually there. Those are legal documents. And we have a lot of teachers that are kind of, whatever. But it really is how we calculate how many children are here and how much money we get. ADA just went up this year, so that's good news for school districts, according to the May revise, about $26 per child. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that works out to millions of dollars, so it's a big deal. Also, your CalPADS data has to be up to date and be very accurate. And CalPADS is the tracking system from all student data, and it tracks what teachers a child had, if they have free and reduced lunch, parent educational level, what kind of grades the child got, their attendance. All of that data is collected by the state of California and tracked for as long as the kid's in California. Eventually, I imagine we'll get up with a national database, but right now it's just by state. And that data has to be reviewed constantly, because that's how we also get our supplemental and concentration money. Because by the number of EL children, children in poverty, foster and homeless children, we get extra money for those kids, and we've got to show that we're doing something for them. It talks about some of the things you can tell that your budget is not effective. And one of the things that they said was if you give a lot of raises to teachers that are unrealistic, that can really get you in a lot of trouble. And I'm telling you, the first thing that FCMAT comes in and does when you're in those kind of troubles is they invalidate all collective bargaining agreements. So if the teachers union thinks they're getting something over on administration, we're going to get this great raise, and you end up insolvent, the first thing that goes is those raises. They put it down to a state average and get that worked out. As we get close to June, we need to think about Proposition 30, because that's money. If we don't renew Proposition 30, that's money that we'll be losing, and we're kind of used to getting. So if that does not pass in June, that will be something that we have to budget for and think about, because we won't be getting that money. And I think I already mentioned, but in the May revise, COLA is down to zero. So there is no COLA for next year. So when unions are talking about cost of living increases, we're getting a little bit more next year because of the raise in ADA, and a little bit more in supplemental in the GAP funding. I think it's gone up to 54% of the GAP funding. But remember, we're almost finished with GAP funding. It's a very small percentage that we'll be getting more of. And if you don't get GAP funding, it doesn't matter to you. I know a couple of you are basic aid districts, so it doesn't matter to you at all. But ADA will. So we've got this week. We'll see you online at 5 p.m. for our online class. Keep up on those discussions. You're doing a great job. Some of you are really great about putting in references on your discussion posts and really responding to other people in the class. I really appreciate that. You're doing a great job on that. But remember, those close by midnight on Saturday, because I grade on Sunday. So make sure you get those done on time. All right, I'm back in town, so feel free to email me or call me if you need any help. I'll see you online.